Thanks for joining us Behind the Frontline, a podcast providing timeless solutions to everyday workforce and workplace challenges. Frontline Training Solutions is an express employment professionals company, strategically placed between the workplace and the workforce with professionals standing by, ready to combat your unique challenges. Learn more about what we do at frontlineon.com.
Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Frontline, where I'm sitting in the studio today with Trina Poston, who's our senior organizational consultant, and I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more. But we are talking today in recap of the recent webinar that we just did, Burnout and Boundaries, and it was last week live, but we want you to go listen to that webinar. It is free on our archive, chock full of so much useful information on just burnout. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that topic today. But Trina, if you want to just share with our audience just a little bit about who you are.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And thank you so much for having me back. As you mentioned, my name is Trina Poston, and I have a little bit of a squiggly background and squiggly career. Started out in healthcare very young, right out of high school, spent quite a bit of time in the project management space, transitioned into performance improvement. So really spending a lot of time helping organizations through significant transformational change, whether that was culture-based or M&A. And recently, in the last 5 to 7-ish years, really been spending more time on the wellness side. So I've got my wellness certification, been doing some executive and personal coaching, and spending some time, really diving into mental health first aid and becoming a first aider. So the well-rounded experience there.
I absolutely love that. And a lot of the things you said in the webinar really hit home to me and just things I've experienced in the past. And there's other people in the office who said that was so useful to articulate some things that I have felt in the past, just through my own experiences. So I want to dive deeper into this topic, because we even had such a big turnout on the webinar of people that were like, this was so useful. This was such useful information for me. And even how can I articulate this to my leaders that I'm experiencing this, and just how we can get better as a culture, just make a healthier culture in general. So I want to dive right in. In this webinar, you said burnout is often an organizational issue, not just an individual weakness. And what are some signs leaders may be blaming the person when they should be really examining the way the work is designed, prioritized, or resourced?
Yeah, sometimes in our organizations, we really have that, and I'm dating myself on this one a little bit, but we have that mindset of like, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do to our people in our organizations. We load on more, and we use all the buzzwords like we have to do more with less. And there is some element of truth to that. But what I find is that more often than not, we're not tracking how much work our teams are actually taking on. So that's one of the things that I always recommend as a first step, both for leaders and as individuals, making sure they know how many projects we have, how many new initiatives are we taking on, how much work is actually at hand, and then also looking at the workload balance. How is that work divided across the team? Mm-hmm. And so just by taking that one small step, organizations as a whole get an aggregate of how the work is distributed across departments and teams.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of monitoring that workload so it doesn't all fall on the specific overachiever, whose responsibility would that ultimately fall on? Would it fall on the person who's doing the task? Would it fall on their direct leader? Is this more of an HR thing?
I would say all of the above. It's a shared responsibility and a shared accountability throughout the organization, right? So my job as an individual is to monitor my own workload and my own stress levels. And hopefully the upline is engaged in that, and there's some ongoing dialogue about, taking on new projects, what that means. And then at an organizational level, being able to look at, organizations have access to all sorts of information. So looking at how many communications are occurring outside of work hours, call-ins or absenteeism. Likewise, presenteeism, which we don't always think about. But at an organizational level, those things can all be tracked and monitored. So I would say all of the above.
No, that's a great response. Do you think that's different when there's a lot of different areas that we focus on in different, organizations, there's administrative, there's light industrial, there's the trades, and we know that burnout can look very different in trades, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, and other non-office roles. But what are some of the early warning signs that leaders should watch for in those environments, especially when burnout may show up as attendance issues, like you said, safety concerns? What do you say, presenteeism?
Yeah.
Other things, conflict, attitude changes, turnover. What are some of the early warning signs that should be looking out for?
So you've hit on presenteeism, and very often in our industrial manufacturing environments, people don't feel like they can take off because they have to be on the line. Maybe they're doing, HVAC work, or they're going to someone's home or responding to service calls, and they don't feel like they can take off even when they're not feeling well or something's going on in their family. So that's what we're talking about by presenteeism. It's showing up even though physically or mentally we're not really there. So those are some of the first warning signs, right? When you have people showing up sick, they're coughing, you can tell they're struggling. Absenteeism, on the other hand, the folks that are calling off. And typically what happens in those situations is you'll hear things like, I have a migraine. And the one-off migraine doesn't necessarily ring a bell.
Yeah.
But when it's every Monday or every few weeks, or when people say, gosh, I've just been having a really upset stomach lately. I'm not sure what's going on. Or I'm not sleeping. Or I've been craving salty and sweet. And you hear these things and they sound benign, right? But over time, as a good leader, if you're listening and watching for people calling off or leaving early, coming in late because of those things, then you can start to really see the trend. And more often than not, you hear the trend if you're paying attention.
Yeah. I've never heard of the salty and sweet one. Have you heard that?
Absolutely. When those cortisol levels start raising and we're not sleeping well, then we get cravings for certain things.
Oh, I thought you were mentioning like someone claiming salty and sweet is a reason for not coming into work. It's like, I've never heard that one.
No. Actual cravings, those physical symptoms, they come up.
I get it. Yeah. So a lot of leaders want to support employee well-being, obviously. It's a big part of what we, talk about in a lot of our webinars and podcasts around employee well-being. So we know that a lot of leaders want to support that, but they also cannot lower accountability, productivity, safety standards, or customer expectations. So there's kind of like that balance there. How can employers respond to burnout with unintentionally lowering the bar?
Yeah, I think setting the organizational priorities, granted, we don't want to lose customers or deprioritize work, but being really clear on what is the priority at this time. And there's a lot of adjustments that can be made in timelines and things of that nature. But as leaders in our organizations, we have to be really clear on what's important right now. And the reality is everything can't be important, right? Right. So having those leaders really taking the time to do the strategic planning, to making sure to also make sure that we've only taken on as much work as we can really handle. So we think about in a manufacturing environment, we talk about WIP limits and things like that all the time. How much can the system actually hold? And that looks a little bit different in the office and when we're talking about knowledge workers, but the principle still applies, right? There's only so many hours, working hours in a week, year, whatever. And so making sure that the work doesn't become all-consuming. It really does come down to math, right? When I'm working with individual clients, one of the things that I have them do, which is funny when you think about it, but I'll say, how many hours do you have in a week? And it's kind of comical to watch people stumble around that. But guess what? That answer is the same for everyone. It's 168. That's how many hours we all have in a week. So when we think about that and take out how much time do we need to sleep? How much time are we commuting? It becomes a math problem. Our organizations are the exact same way, right? So there may be a little bit of variation for different shifts and things like that. And some organizations do have a little bit more working time than others. But ultimately, we know exactly how much time we have to work with and how much we can fit into it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so true. Okay, I want to keep moving forward. One of the audience questions that we received really gets at the heart of leadership. Challenge and pressure can help people grow, but too much pressure can break people down. So how do leaders distinguish between healthy stretching that builds resilience and unhealthy strain that leads to burnout?
Oh, this is such a good question. And we go through the go to the default of pressure makes diamonds. And yes, there's an element of truth to that. But the biggest thing for leaders is keeping that door of dialogue open and being supportive of the team.
Yeah.
So thinking back to when I was talking about keeping a roster of work and level loading how much work we have, right? Asking the question, how can I support you? It's simple things like changing the verbiage, right? Instead of how much more can you take on? What can come off your plate? How close are we to finishing this project? It could be I have more work for you, and it could be that there's 5 more projects waiting in the wings, but how soon are we to finishing up? Organizationally, and from a leadership perspective, being able to look at work in progress without even asking the individual, are we using performance management tools like an Asana or Monday or something that gives us indicators of how much work people have? So some of that is structural. Some of that, of course, is the leader themselves. But the biggest thing is making sure that people feel safe enough to just say, I can't take anything else right now. And it's not a no, it's a not right now. Right? Being able to say, I can't take it on this month, but this project wraps up on this date, and then I can pick up something else. Or let me ramp up another colleague on the team and get it started, and then I can come into it later. Sometimes we lose our creativity in the workplace. And so being really creative about how work is distributed, accomplished, can go a long way to, number one, decreasing burnout, but also increasing productivity and creativity.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of what you said right there just hits so close to home. I remember I'd experienced my own burnout some a couple of years ago because, managing 3 brands is a lot of work. And I got to a point where I honestly felt like I was drowning. And the tool that helped me the most, I tried Monday, I tried Asana, I tried other programs like that, but I just felt like it was just more effort in that moment to just kind of organize everything. And so what I really sat down and did was I built a spreadsheet and I just listed out different buckets. And in those buckets were different tasks that I was doing and meetings that I was taking. And there was like 7 different buckets, and the list just kept growing and growing. And then I sat down with my leader and I said, this is everything I've got going on. And we both were like, wow, this is a lot. And so, because it's not just, stuff I'm getting from direct, it was stuff I was getting from other people and other requests that I was getting. And so there's all these different avenues of things. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way. But the biggest key for me was, like you said, using the tool to just sit down and say, okay, put it on paper, lay it all out, look at it holistically. And I was able to once I did that, it was like this change that happened. Like I was able to breathe a little bit. Right. It almost felt manageable at that point.
Yeah. And what I said is not rocket science, right? Like just the ability to make it visual and be able to say, here's what I'm working on, plan on a page. And I love what you said in talking about laying everything out. It does not have to be sophisticated, right? If we're talking about a large organization, thousands of people, then yes, you need something probably a little bit more robust than Excel. But what you described is very similar to, if not what we call a Kanban board, right? Where you're walking through to do, doing, done, what's in progress, and you can actually see it in workflow, right? The beauty of something like that is there's a backlog. So it's literally a conversation of, because I'm doing all this, I can't work on this backlog right now. Exactly. And when this comes off my plate, I will pull something in, but it's all in due time and all in good measure. Yeah. And until our leaders are looking at something like that to help our teams make decisions, that burnout is bound to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I used the tool, the more it became part of the one-on-ones. And now we're printing it out. We're looking at it together every week. And it just made things so much easier for me personally. So yeah, I love that. You talked about, in the webinar, you talked about high performers being especially at risk because they are competent, capable, often willing to take on more. How can leaders protect their high performers from becoming the default dumping ground for every urgent project or extra responsibility?
Yeah. Some of the best ways to capitalize on the skill set of a high performer is to help them train others. And often the default is give them more work. And so if you are really tapping into their knowledge and helping them grow your organization and grow your team, that's going to last your organization leaps and bounds more than them taking on the project. So coaching and mentoring new staff is a big one. Documenting what they do and how they do it, right? Often we don't want to take the time for that step, but it saves you on your onboarding. It helps grow your team. It just tends to make things easier for all involved. Also with high performers, they have a tendency to not say no because we like being seen as the go-to.
That's
We
true.
love being subject matter experts.
Yeah, it's like a rush.
It is.
Endorphins.
Yeah, dopamine rush, right?
Yeah.
But with that comes more of a need to have downtime. So if they're taking on more, that's another one where I mentioned in the webinar, making sure they have some extended rest period, right? If you're working through the weekend on that high priority project, take Monday off, right? If you are working nights, come in late. Adjust their schedule in some way and make it so that it's not an ask. Right? How are we adjusting your schedule? I know that you're pulling us in different hours, or that this project is going to extend a little bit longer than we maybe thought. How can we flex your schedule to make that work for you?
I'm sure there's a lot of leaders who can't hire. They don't have the funds. They don't have the bottom line to hire more people. So it's kind of like, well, can you risk losing them versus bringing on another staff? You know, 'cause especially like high performers, like if they're bringing on a lot, they're doing a lot. They're, can you risk losing them?
Absolutely. And the cost of turnover is high. I don't remember the specific number, but I think it's like 2.5 times the cost to replace someone than it is to retain. But when we're thinking about that, it's how do we maximize the talent of that individual? And so it's like an ounce of prevention is worth or how does that saying go?
An ounce of prevention.
Prevention is worth a pound of cure or something?
Maybe.
When we think about the overall and lasting impact of really distilling that information down, making it accessible to other people, your bottom line increases because you have people growing and stretching in the work that they're doing, right? Just think about that. If you have a high performer who spends a little bit of time coaching, mentoring someone more junior on the team, even an intern that maybe even there for the summer, that intern can take their SOPs, for lack of a better term, and transition all that over a summer. How many people would be impacted by that? How many people can you onboard just by having SOPs or videos or something that takes that tribal knowledge that's in that person's brain and relay it to something usable?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Well, in my own journey, I know I touched on that a minute ago. Some of the signs you mentioned hit really close to home, especially in the webinar. Working through lunch, working late into the night, feeling like I needed to prove myself, that all hit really close to home. Getting stuck in that rinse and repeat cycle. For leaders who recognize those signs in themselves, what should they pay attention to before it becomes full burnout?
Oh, that is a great question. One that I always look at is how much are you logging on at night? Truly, do you ever shut off?
Yeah.
So logging on at night is one, and logging on during vacation is another.
You hit me right there. I mean, yeah, there'd be times where I was up until 2 a.m. working, and especially on vacation, kids go to sleep. I'm in the living room or whatever, Airbnb, and doing stuff.
Which can be effective, but then also what's the trade-off? When are you going in late? Are you taking that extra day? What does that look like? Because truly, when have you rested?
Yeah.
And we hear things like, oh, I need a vacation from my vacation. No, you need to rest on your vacation. And then we would be talking about a completely different scenario. So thinking about these leaders, a couple things that I hit on there in regard to things to look out for. But be mindful of your own physical symptoms, right? And sometimes we take our wellness journey and use it as a mask for when burnout is there, right? So that weekly massage is great unless you really need a weekly massage, right? Because the tension is so high, right? Often we sell that as, this is a wellness practice and I'm doing really great. But when your shoulders are on your neck, then it's a problem, right? Watching out for vices. That glass of wine at dinner is great. Every night might be problematic, right? That bag of chips as a snack, no problem. Every night, 2 or 3 bags, right? So being conscious of our vices is a big one. How much sleep are we getting? And so many of us have our wearables, right? Are we seeing a decrease in that sleep score or an increase in that weight number, right? What's actually happening in our bodies? And sometimes, especially as leaders, we equate that to, well, it's a really busy season, or we're going through the same things our folks are. And I think sometimes that just gets lost in translation because of organizational hierarchy, but we're human too.
Yeah.
Right? So the things that our staff are seeing, we're seeing as well. We just pay a different level of attention to it and, quite frankly, come to expect it in a leadership role.
Now, I want you to speak directly to the audience for a second. If there's a leader who is listening to this and they've experienced that, or maybe they notice someone directly on their team who's experiencing that, like, what's the first thing they should do, like, tomorrow?
It's a great question. First and foremost, even before the ask or the thing that they should do tomorrow, first and foremost, the thing I want to say is, leader, you are not alone. Many of us have been there. We share that pain. We've hopefully supported our teams through that as well. So that's first and foremost. Second thing, in terms of supporting our team members, be curious. Ask the question, what do you need from me? There may be a situation where you can't immediately press a button, sign a paper, get it done. But knowing that for your team members, knowing that they have your support helps build trust and helps them know that they have someone that's in their corner. So first things first is just be curious and ask, what can I do for you?
I love that. And I think that's so key. I love the idea of being curious. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast right there. I learned that in one of our frontline trainings, 4 or 5 years ago. And it really just became such a mantra in my life that it became one of my own personal core values. Just the idea of curiosity. And just really, instead of just getting mad at something or just upset or just confused, like really diving into the core root of the problem and just getting curious, not just with yourself, but with other people around you, and just asking the questions, Yeah. I feel like so many problems get solved just creatively when we just take the time to just be curious.
Absolutely.
Oh,
the hard part is fighting against that assumption that we know.
Oh, yeah.
That's the hard part. We talk about that in developing coaching leaders. We call that one of the gremlins, or one of the barriers to effective coaching, is we assume that we know, or in some cases we're passing judgment, right? And so coming in, just figuring that we don't know what's going on. And the reality is we don't know what's going on in the lives of all of our team members. And so, I think about where I am in life right now, the sandwich generation, the struggle is real. And so, with all of the various hats we wear, work is but one of them. And we have to be able to take that one off too.
That's so true. Thank you for addressing the leaders. I hope that was helpful. And if you want to reach out to Trina on LinkedIn or us, we'd love to help you more. But I want to talk about the effects of personal burnout on the team. Especially to those leaders who are leading teams. In other words, when a leader is exhausted, always on, emotionally depleted, quietly cynical, how does that shape the culture, even if they never say those things out loud?
That is a really interesting question, because the facade is typically still up, right? But what tends to happen is there's less accountability. Right? Like if certain measures aren't being hit for some reason, now we're not talking about them anymore, right? That hard driving leader somehow is not asking those questions. And then the team morale tends to fall, because if the leader's not asking, do I even have to do this anymore? Right? And so for leaders, one of the things that can be really impactful is you don't necessarily have to be the one looking at the numbers. You just need to make sure that the numbers are being looked at, right? And one of those numbers should also be staff engagement, staff satisfaction. But that's something that leaders can delegate. And I think that's part of what, especially our high performers, that leaders forget that they can do. Let's delegate the right things. And when, as a leader, we're experiencing some burnout, what are our options? Right? We have things at our disposal, whether that's EAP service, whether that's working with a private therapist or coach, whether that is grabbing coffee and hanging out with someone who is not at all related to our work life. So all of these things that we think about at an individual level apply just as simply, but maybe even more importantly at a leadership level.
Yeah. Something you said that really struck me, because I'm more of the creative personality type. And when I develop something, I literally treat it as if it's my baby, to the point where I protect it, I nurture it, I grow it. And something that I noticed in myself when I was doing that, as I was a father to my children growing up, is that at some point I'm going to have to let my child, my baby, grow and grow in someone else's hands and step off. And so it was hard for me to delegate, because it's like, that's my baby. Like, I don't want to give that away. But at the same time, it's like, I can't do that for everything that I do, like I'm drowning here. So at some point I got to give it away.
Absolutely. And I love that you made the analogy between parenting, because as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, pregnancy is so hard. That's what I was thinking about, right? Like growing a human, same way that we grow projects, is really challenging. But to your point, with a human, you have 18 years to kind of nurture it and grow it, and then start wrapping your mind around giving it away and sending it out into the great big world, which I'm in that space right now. So that hits home for me. But when we think about things from a work perspective, the words of the great Franklin Covey, right?
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
So
that's good.
I'm going to start this thing, and I'm going to get it to a point, but someone else can take it over the finish line, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it also keeps us from having so much ownership of it that we don't want to see it grow and change and evolve, right? Sometimes we can get a little too invested. And so from a sustainability perspective, we need to get things up and running, but still leave some space for innovation and curiosity and creativity, and let it go and do its thing.
That's so true. That's so true. Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward.
Okay.
One audience member mentioned trying to keep healthy time boundaries, but feeling judged or resented by other leaders who do not set those boundaries for themselves. How should a leader navigate that tension when they are trying to model something healthier, but the surrounding leadership culture still rewards overwork?
Keep modeling and explaining it as you go. You're not necessarily going to change the reward system overnight, but also engage your HR team. Have those conversations. What does this look like for us as an organization? And I think about, sometimes things shift, right? COVID, prime example. We have all these metrics that we look at. And part of the performance culture at that time was to just do all the same things. We're just doing them different because it's COVID, right? Well, do we need to measure all of those different metrics right now? Maybe some of them are more watch metrics, and there's a few key ones that we do, right? So not being afraid to shift the work a little bit as well, from an HR level, is really important for that leader. Going back to the leader specifically, having the conversations around what you're doing and why, bringing the facts, bringing the receipts of why we're doing this, right? Opening up that dialogue. I mentioned in the webinar, PepsiCo's Leaving Loud initiative, where they made it safe for people to say, head to the soccer game, have a doctor's appointment, whatever it is. And until we can normalize those things, it's going to be really hard to prevent burnout. Yeah. And sometimes that happens at a team level.
Yeah.
Right. And then it permeates out through the rest of the organization.
Yeah. I met the former president and co-chair of PepsiCo a few years ago, and I was asking him all sorts of things about his brand and just his business, and just because as a creative, I was very curious about the PepsiCo brand, and he just kept turning the conversation back to the team that he grew, the people, and I think that's just a great example of good culture right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, you mentioned practical tools like workload rosters, calendar blocking, communication norms, delayed email sends, which I loved. I thought that was a great tool. Meeting free zones and recovery time after peak seasons. If an organization is just starting this conversation, what is one practical change that can create momentum without feeling like a major culture overhaul?
I think you hit this one. The one practical change I personally like is the Kanban board, to keep visibility around what the team is doing. And that can be effective for a large team, small team, mid-sized team, leadership team, individual contributors. It's pretty universal in that way. And it can be a physical space or it can be electronic. So there's so much versatility there. But just to be able to bring visibility to what people are actually working on and expected timelines, I think is a great first step.
That's so true. And, there's different ways of doing that. Maybe, we could touch on that. I know that digitally there's, Monday, the Trello is one that I've used in the past. Sometimes, what I'll do is I'll just get a sheet of paper out. Because if I'm on my computer, I'm looking at my emails, I'm looking at my notifications, I'm looking at everything, and it almost just feels like more is happening at once that I can't even get organized. So what I like to do is just set it on paper and just brain dump and just organize everything.
Absolutely. Sticky notes are your friend. Yeah. But there's all sorts of tools. Trello is a good one, and they have a free model. There's a product called Miro, Miro, that does the same thing. Believe it or not, Post-it notes, 3M, they actually have an app.
Do they really?
Sticky notes as well. So that's another option for you. Microsoft, if you're a 365 user in Microsoft Planner, you can set up that same type of a board. So there's all sorts of tools out there if you would like to do it electronically. Yeah. But if not, kicking it old school still works. Sticky notes and Sharpies are effective.
What I do now is every Monday morning now I will I'll do that. I'll get a sheet of paper out and I'll just brain dump everything. Yeah. This is everything I know is coming up. And then I'll take that list against my calendar for the week. And I'll say, this is what I'm missing. These are my deliverables. This is the meetings I need to have. And I just have my list. And then I just refer to that list all week long.
Absolutely.
And at the next week, I look at the old list and then I do the new list. And oh my gosh, just so much mental clarity on Monday at noon now. After I'm done brain dumping everything, I'm able to just sit and look like, okay, I feel so much clearer about what I need to do now and my deliverables I need to return.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. So tying that back, one of the things for my people who get Sunday scaries, doing that on a Friday afternoon can be one of the most clarifying things that you can do.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So taking that last maybe 30 minutes of your workday on Friday and figuring out what my week next week is going to look like. That's why, or that lack of clarity around that is why a lot of people end up working on the weekends or working late nights because they have no idea what's coming. And so by spending a few minutes on Friday just saying, here's what I have ahead of me, here's what the next week looks like, then they can decide what to do with it versus feeling like it's consuming, right? Making the decision, you know what, here's what I have. If I put in 2 hours on Saturday, I can probably really get ahead of this. And that's cool if you have the 2 hours to give it on Saturday. But if you're looking at it and saying, wow, you know what, I can get this all done, but I need to block 2 hours on Monday. Same end game, but knowing what it looks like and being in a position where I, as the employee, am making that decision, you have so much mental clarity and are able to prioritize what you need to do for your own well-being and to get the work done. That's
so true. I like that. I might start doing that. I might start on Fridays. That's a good Sunday scaries. Never heard of that term, but I'm going to start using that.
That's another indicator of burnout, by the way.
Yeah.
It's that kind of angst or fear Sunday nights where people get kind of worked up and maybe a little bit more irritable and, their brain has already returned to work and are experiencing those stressors already to the extent that they can't enjoy being home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or on vacation or whatever that looks like. Yep. I've been there. Not here for this organization. It's very, very clear. Prior organizations, I've been there. It's the reason I left that organization.
Work.
Yeah. If a leader suspects, this is the last question here. If a leader suspects someone on their team may be experiencing burnout, what does a helpful first conversation sound like? And take a little deeper. How can they open the door with care and curiosity while still keeping the conversation grounded in workplace expectations, performance, and support?
Oh, loaded question.
Loaded.
First things first for that leader, I would say be clear in what you're observing, right? This is not the time for I heard, what I think I know, rushing to judgment. This is what I observed, right? I feel like you were a little short with customer X in this meeting. Help me understand, and I'd like to support you as best I can, right? Or, perhaps it's a deadline that was missed. I see that we missed this deadline. I'd like to know more about root cause, to your point, what happened here, and how we can do things differently next time. So it's that combination of, this is what I observed. Let's get to root cause and understand what happened, and also how can I support you? So it's not just a one size fits all of, what happened. It's really taking the time to be intentional about understanding what happened, or making the observation, understanding what happened, and also offering support.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, those are just basic coaching leader things,
Absolutely.
And one of the trainings you mentioned that we have is developing coaching leaders and learning how to not just lead the task and the performance of your employees, but really coach them and ask those open-ended questions, get curious, acknowledge, affirm, and help get to the root issues of what they're dealing with and feeling.
Absolutely.
What else can they do? Like what other things can leaders think of? Like what's one easy way for a leader to implement this into their organization tomorrow or next week?
One thing that I always think about is understanding the entirety of the team. Everyone doesn't do the same thing, and really thinking about how to leverage the strengths of the folks on the team. There's also hidden talents on your team, right? There's that person that works in finance that really loves graphic design. Well, maybe they can lighten the load for another person on the team if we knew that existed, and it's a stretch goal for them. So there's a balance of the work responsibilities as we know them, and maybe some assignments that are outside of the scope of their responsibility that allow them to stretch and use their brain a little bit differently. That's refreshing versus just feeling like more work.
I love that. Yeah. That reminded me of something we do here. We have different committees for different areas of thing. And one of them is, associate relations committee. So the associates that come in and they will put on different, events for them and do different outreach, and they do some graphic design on there. And I absolutely love it. I love that they do that because they have a passion for it, and it's something that I don't need to help them with. And they have a great time with it. And so thank you so much, Trina.
You're so welcome.
If you learned anything here, you want to know more about it, reach out to us. We'd love to contact you. We'd love to talk with you. Trina would love to talk with you. We have lots of trainings. Our biggest hope here is that we can help develop people, inspire growth, and unlock potential. Go watch that webinar on our archive. Thank you so much, Trina.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on The Frontline.